Hi, this is David Rehagen with ThinkGeo, and I wanted to share with you today a little utility that can help you prepare your data in such a way to really increase the rendering performance. So this utility will split polygons into smaller regions, thereby allowing them to draw more quickly. And to kind of show you the issue of why we want to grid these things is that many times you might have a detailed polygon of your country border or your region border. Maybe it's the county, maybe it's the state, and the further you zoom in, a lot of times the more detail of a border you want, because the scale is much lower. So the problem comes in is that if I'm zoomed into a region that's only that little bitty small area there, what happens is that I typically use that polygon as the background for the earth. So it's like usually a brown color or something like that. The problem is that every time this goes to render, even if there's hardly anything else on the screen, it still has to render this entire huge polygon. And so what we would typically find is that if people looked at their project after they rendered a map, and let's say the map took 1 second, and they wanted to optimize the performance, then there's a little property on the layer called drawing time. When they look at the drawing time, what they find is that the roads drew in 10 milliseconds, the points drew in another 10 or 12 milliseconds, and then they would come across some of these boundary layers, and these would take 500 milliseconds to draw. And so really most of the drawing time, 90% of it was spent drawing these polygons, even though we're in a region that was so small, we're definitely inside of the polygon. But the system doesn't really necessarily know that. And so what it has to do is it has to first load this big multi-point polygon from disk. It then has to transfer it from whatever format it was in the shapefile to well-known binary, and then maybe it needs to go to screen coordinates, and then eventually it gets clipped at the end. But the problem is that you've already kind of lost the performance game because you had to load all that data in, and that just takes time. So what we recommend doing is we recommend using this utility. And what this utility is going to do is it's going to take your polygon, and dependent on the target scale that you set, it's going to grid the polygon. And let's take a look at that. Go ahead and run the utility. And actually, the utility is out on the wiki under on the samples, and you can also get to it from the video link on our website, which is probably where you saw it. So we include all the source for the utility. It's really not that much, but I'll show you how it works. So we'll go ahead and run this. We're going to pick a directory that has some data in it, and I'll just leave that there. Alright, this is going to take a little while, so I'm just going to go ahead and fast forward to when it's completed. Alright, so it's finished up. Let's go ahead and stop it. And here's the directory, and originally it had this US states and this countries shapefile, and it created some new ones. So let's just focus on the countries here for a second. So what it did is it created an area split shapefile, and it created a line split shapefile, and you'll see what these are used for here in a second. Let's go ahead and load these up here. Okay, so we'll first look at the area split. And as you can see, it has the same outline, except it's created these little grids, and actually each one of these is a separate polygon now. Instead of the US being one large polygon, it's actually split. So this area and then this is one boundary of a polygon, and this is the interior of another. And what that does is that if, for example, you were to zoom in to where the hand is here, then when it did the spatial query to find the polygon that needs to draw, it would load up this polygon, and that polygon is only made up of 1, 2, 3, 4. I think you have to close it, so 5 points. So it would only have to render 5 points and load it from the disk, as opposed to maybe thousands or tens of thousands on a really detailed line. Now, when you actually go to render this on your map, it's important that you don't want to see these lines. So what you need to do is you need to make sure not to do a fill. Not to do an outline, just do the fill. And as you can see now, those lines are gone. But you still want to be able to have the boundaries. So what you do then is you go ahead and load the other file that we saw there, which was the country's line split. And what this is going to do is it's going to bring in all the boundaries. So if we just turn this off, this line one is simply all the line boundaries that were based on the polygon. And so these are actually split as well. So if let's say we want to identify one particular line, you'll notice that the line is only this long. So what this means is that if we were zoomed in really tight, let's say right here, then what we would do is we would load the area polygon here that would only be made up of a number of points, and then we only draw the border, which is also only made up of a couple of points. So this is a great way to take really complicated large polygons, split them up, and then in your application render the area ones just as a fill, and then render the line ones, and you'll see huge performance gains. A lot of times we see things like a particular polygon layer was taking 500 milliseconds go down to less than 5 milliseconds using this. And in our products like our World Map Kit, we've already done this, and that's how we get a lot of the really great drawing times using this technique. So all the sources here, and just go ahead and look over it. It's not really that long, but it just creates those two shape files. And if you have any questions, go ahead and go to the forums and ask away. So thanks a lot. Bye-bye.